Okay, I wasn't planning to do a video today on my day off, but I've got to tell you what has happened in Europe, because they have actually done it. A couple of weeks ago when I talked about this, it may have been a week ago now, I remember some of the comments, even from my own fans and subscribers, were saying like, no, Neil, that would never happen. What you're talking about would just never happen in the EU and, you know, all these other things. Well, I'm here to tell you today that it's just happened. So what am I talking about? European lawmakers have voted for the abolition of member state vetoes. So this is one step towards the abolition of votes for member states. So this is more of a 2 or 3 step process, with the end result being that member states will no longer have votes for what goes on in the EU, and it will be decided upon by these 5, what they're calling the 5 presidents, who are unelected officials. So what will happen is that these 5 people will vote on everything. And the reason they've said this is because they feel as though that some of the member states, the MEPs, are blocking them from doing things they want to do. Examples of this are the EU army and EU health policies and everything else. They feel like members got involved this year, member states, and blocked a number of things over the last 2 or 3 years. So what they're saying is this is really inefficient for them now, so they want to bring it to just 5 people having these votes in the future. And it's quite difficult to actually get this passed. So what have they done then? Well, they've begun with the veto. So let me tell you what this means then. But before we go into all of that, just a little recap. I made this video for you earlier in the week. Some of you may not have seen it. It's just a couple of minutes long. Check it out. All right, ladies and gents, we are live again this year with the Black Friday through Cyber Monday deal on courses. And this is going to be the most ridiculous deal that you have ever seen. Yes, 90% off courses for just a few days only, and it will be very, very limited by coupons. So you really got to be hot on this, and if the coupons have expired for today, then you just need to refresh each day to see if you can get a coupon. All of the courses will be included, nothing will be excluded. You'll even get all the free bonuses and everything else that comes with it. You will be getting the full course. So if you've always dreamed of improving your life and learning about macro and finance and wealth and the psychology behind wealth, then these courses are going to be right for you. This isn't rocket science. You don't need to spend months watching YouTube videos and thousands of hours and trying to design your own blueprint and all of this sort of stuff. I've already done it for you. Why waste all of your time, which is going to be far more valuable than the price that you pay for the trainings? Because these courses are going to help you to make more money almost right away. I'll give you a guarantee with the stock market course, and that is that you're going to be able to find undervalued stocks, in fact significantly undervalued stocks, very, very quickly within the first few days of doing your course. And for the money psychology course, I guarantee on day 1 you'll start to think more like the rich, more like wealthy people think. Because you've probably noticed yourself that rich people are not necessarily smarter than you, they just know some things that you don't. So this is what you're going to learn in the course. I also guarantee you that you are never going to see a lower price than what you're seeing right now. People last year thought I was bluffing on the price, and they got a nasty shock after Black Friday week when the prices went back up. So we got loads of testimonials, loads of guarantees. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee on the course as well. Check out the information page, and I hope you are lucky enough and quick enough to get one of these coupons. All right, back to the video. Okay, and we are at over 91 or almost 92% of all the coupons have now sold out. So make sure to grab it. There's just a couple days left of this deal, so make sure to grab it. Reducing the sovereignty of member states within the EU. This means that if there is a vote that's coming through, that previously a number of MEPs could have vetoed it so that it didn't happen. But they've actually now removed this, or should I say they've voted on the plan. So they've actually approved the plan to remove this now. And we talked about the Polish MEP who strongly opposed this whole bill, and we talked about that not long ago. I hope you can't hear all this screaming kids and dogs barking and everything else in the background, because it's really distracted me. But he said that this is creating now a massive super state of the EU where the members don't really have any voting rights. And who are the 5 people who are elected? Well, are they elected by the EU citizens? No, they are not. And he went into a couple of things that he criticized. One of them was the European Commission centralization to control areas including environment, education and public health. So they're talking about environment here, saying that people aren't taking climate seriously, so they're going to enforce it. There'll just be 5 people that have a vote on that. Well, how do we know if these 5 people own shares in all of this energy, renewable energy, and all the projects? What about education? They feel as though there isn't a uniform education policy throughout the EU. They talk about how some parents homeschool. They talk about public health as well, and how this isn't universal across the EU either. So they want to bring this in. This sort of builds, I guess, on the WHO policy, the global policy. They're very similar. But again, a lot of MEPs have signed this now, saying that this is a coup with communist roots. 2 countries which heavily oppose this are Hungary and Poland, and they are talking about how they would not go along with any of this if it actually goes through, which it has now passed. They have voted on it. The vote passed. Now, the other big story today out of the Eurozone is the ECB, European Central Bank, has just, and this is like one of the titles that I would use, is called ECB gives dire warning. That's like one of my titles, isn't it? Eurozone banks starting to show stress as loan defaults rise. And they're talking about here how there are zombie loans on the bank's balance sheets that are ready to collapse. They said this could create a dark winter throughout the Eurozone. I'm sure we've heard that term before, the dark winter term. It says that they advised all the banks to put aside more funding to cope with the collateral collapses that are coming, but most of the banks haven't taken action on this because they didn't have the available funds, because a lot of the customers have been pulling out their funds, putting it into money markets and mutual funds and index and all these other things. So the banks simply don't have the money to do this. So why is all this unfolding then? Well, number one, this is larger. These debts are larger than the 2008 bubble that occurred in the Eurozone. And the problem is that a lot of the debt, it says here the majority, obviously I don't know the exact figures because there's so many countries in the EU, I'm not going to sit there and calculate out every country, but it says the majority of these are on variable rates. So what's happening is, as these interest rates are rising, and the ECB said they're going to be looking at more interest rate rises soon, the banks are holding on to these debts that are underwater now. It's not just the commercial real estate, it's also a lot of bonds. And the bank said that there's no way they can possibly cover all of this. They're underwater. They're in effect insolvent throughout the EU. And they even talk about here, which it isn't talked about in most Western media, which is interesting. They said all it would take is for a number of customers to start withdrawing their funds, and that would be the end. I mean, how crazy is this story? The average debt of these properties and loan debts has risen to over 10 times their earnings over what happened with the global financial crisis. 10 times the earnings. And they said the biggest risks are Finland, Ireland, which we did a video on yesterday, Ireland, and Greece. By the way, yesterday's video was demonetized very, very quickly, and it was shadow banned. So I don't even know how many of you will even see that video. You probably won't get a notification for it now. But again, just yet again, another one saying misinformation. I provided misinformation and miscontext for what happened in Ireland. No. The media provided the misinformation, miscontext. I put it correctly. I explained what happened. It wasn't a far-right riot which resulted in kids getting injured. I can't even use the actual word here. It was the kids were attacked And then there was riots as a result of it. I mean, it's crazy that my version is classed as misinformation, but anyway. The transaction numbers across the Eurozone for this commercial real estate sector has dropped by 47% in the first half of this year, if we look at it year over year. The bank's loss-making real estate they expect to double to 26%. This could bankrupt a number of banks. And I was surprised to see this article. This came out of the Telegraph, and this title was "Europe is slowly destroying itself as it heads for another lost decade." I did not expect to see this coming out of the Telegraph, and they're basically talking about these other policies are destroying Europe and that the GDP is going to be very, very slow for a long time yet. But really the main thing for you to be aware of with all of this is that the ECB, the Eurozone, the EU, has got some serious issues ahead. If they, let me summarize this, if they go ahead with all of these plans where they take the votes away from the member countries, you are basically left with a dictatorship. You've got 5 people who are going to resign over all of the decisions throughout the EU, all of the EU citizens, all of the countries. It is absolute madness. And with all the digital ID, all the credit scores, carbon credit scores, social credit scores, the digital currency, everything else coming in, this is an absolute recipe for disaster. You're going to have, well, you could have, if this goes bad, like you get some really evil people that go into those positions, you could have a dictatorship that spans a huge amount of Europe, who would have control of some of the most powerful military, especially when you combine them all together, in the world, or at least having advanced weaponry and systems. So overall, this is not good for the Eurozone, for the EU. Just something for you to be aware of today. But okay, I am heading to the beach now. This was just a really quick video for you, but I had to get it out because I had to let you know what has just passed in the EU. Make sure to grab the Black Friday deal. It may even be Cyber Monday by the time some of you get to watch this video. And we are at over 90% of the coupons gone now, so make sure to grab that deal. All right, take care, God bless. I will see you on Monday.